this second act is messy because we've looked at our first act and gone, really? Is that all life is? I made some really big mistakes there. And now what do I want for my
Right.
second act? And we start asking some really big questions of ourselves.
Hey, you, are you feeling stuck, desperate for a career change, or thinking of starting a business, but you're just not sure how to make your first move? I'm television producer turned career coach Shannon Russell, and this is the Second Act Success Career Podcast. This is where you will not only get the career advice you've been craving, but you'll get tips from career and business experts, along with inspiration from others who have made a career transition to find second act success. Let's get started. Welcome back, my friend. I am career transition coach Shannon Russell. If you have experienced divorce or any kind of trauma in your life, then I hope you will stick around today for my interview with Amanda Kate. Amanda was a communications manager until she decided to stay home and raise her children. During this time, she faced a great deal of turmoil trying to get divorced from her ex-husband. It wasn't until she found kinesiology that Amanda was able to get the strength and direction that she needed to take back the control of her life. Amanda Kate is now a kinesiologist herself, and she is the author of the book Divine Messy Human. Let's meet Amanda Kate so that you can hear her second act success story. Hello, Amanda Kate. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So let's start off with kind of where did your first act begin, I guess?
That first act, I guess, is that childhood patterning and trauma. Trauma is anything that we internalize as anything less than nourishing and nurturing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are born into families where we have lessons to learn. And because in my belief system, we come in from the all that is, we come in from God's source into these tiny little, helpless bodies. And we don't know that we are not all the people around us, and we have to learn that. So that process of individuation is us taking on and making stories about what happens around us. Being raised very much in that white middle class Church of England space, guilt and shame were very well used to control behaviors. And men have it, women have it, all genders, all races have this way that they are allowed to show themselves in the world and this way that they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And being overly emotional was not something that was okay. So it was always you're oversensitive, you can't take a joke, you need thicker skin. And I would always think internally, but that really hurt me and upset me. But it's my fault because I'm taking it the wrong way. And so I really internalized this whole thing that everything was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I hated that feeling, I wanted to make sure that everybody was kept as happy as possible so that I didn't get those outbursts of anger and that I would be loved. I thought that was kind of my way to be loved in the world. And so I became a massive people pleaser right through. I did all the good things at school. I got good grades. I went to university. I worked for my dad for a bit, and then I went traveling with my sister. Met a man, got married, 2 kids, beautiful home, and I ticked all the boxes. I did the life formula that we were supposed to live according to the formula we were presented with. So I ticked all of that, and I ended up miserable. And I was in a marriage that was not nourishing and nurturing at all. Everything that happened was my fault. You're overly sensitive. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that you do this. I'm sorry that you do that. And constantly changing goalposts of what was good behavior, what was not acceptable in his eyes. So I was constantly having to change the game that I was playing in terms of trying to please this man that I was married to, and nothing I did worked. So I constantly felt like I was failing. I had this really strange paradox in my head. I'd be going, I'm a really good person. Like, I love deeply and I've got all these beautiful qualities. And yet at the same time, I hated myself. I hated the way I felt around these people to the extent that I would want to smash mirrors when I saw myself. Like, it was a true hate. And there was something in me still that had this, but you're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
but I hate myself. But you're a good person. And so it was this really massive internal fight. And so I was this really strange mix of completely tightly controlled, suppressed, repressed anger and shame and embarrassment. But then I would also be able to be this beautiful, confident, sexy woman as well. But as soon as, we sort of closed the door on, say, a party or somewhere where I was able to let that out, that all disappeared and I became this insecure, quivering mess. And I was so busy holding up the facade of what I thought our marriage should look to the outside world that everybody was shocked when it came crumbling down.
Mm.
Everybody. And I was seen as the catalyst. I was seen as the one with mental health issues. I was asked if I needed psychiatric help. Who leaves a rich, successful man? You must be crazy. And so I lost a lot of people through that because people thought that there was something mentally wrong with me. What I was doing, however, was following my heart and soul, which I'd been suppressing and ignoring for the past 36 years, I think it was in the end.
Yeah.
And through that journey, I was getting sick. I had chronic fatigue. I was needing like 3-hour naps in the afternoon. And you can tell because I was in this hypervigilant state most of my life of trying to watch what people wanted and needed. And
Walking on
it just,
eggshells and
yeah.
being a mom of 2 kids, you're feeling this way and you're probably
Mm.
so worried about how that's coming off to them and how he's treating them, and I'm sure that just
Mm.
adds to that emotional turmoil that you're feeling.
Oh, it was. I would stand and take the bullets so that they wouldn't cop them. But of course, then I was so tightly wound, I was micromanaging everything and trying to make sure that their behavior was acceptable enough. And towards the end, I really started going, would I want either of my children to be living this life? Would I want my children to be experiencing this type of love? Do I want them to think it's okay to treat their partner the way their dad treats me or the way I treat him?
Mhm.
All of the answers were no.
Mm.
I don't want them living this life. I don't want them in these kind of relationships. I want them to be loved and respected for who they are.
No. And it took you finding your
Mm,
confidence to finally say, I want to be that person that I knew I was all along, but that I was hiding and suppressing because of everyone else. So it finally came to that point.
I think even that came after a number of years of
Mm.
deep diving and therapies and kinesiology and somatic therapies and unpacking of trauma. I couldn't find that confidence to start with. I didn't even really know that it existed in me. So that realization that you mentioned, yes, it came, but it came much, much later.
So at this point, when you were going through this, you were a stay-at-home mom at that point, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
really were had a full-time job taking care of the kids, but you were, I can only imagine you felt like you were under his thumb, so to speak. He was a breadwinner, you were raising the kids. So what was that catalyst to really have you say, "Okay, I'm done."
Well, it's interesting you say that. I didn't recognize it as financial control and abuse at the time because I just thought we were in partnership. But often he would go, you can't go and spend that on yourself because you're not actually earning any of the money here. What do you do all day? Seriously. I'm going, entertaining and educating your children and keeping us alive and feeding us all. And also, I'd given up my career. And every time I tried to start finding a new job or get back into a career, it was always getting in the way of family.
Mm.
And he traveled quite a bit with his work. And so he couldn't have climbed that corporate ladder the way he did without my support. So there was this restriction and there was this feeling that I couldn't spend his money and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. And it was terrifying as I got towards the end because I'm going, I've been out of a job for 10 years now.
Mhm.
And especially in communications, guess what happened in that 10? Social media. Everything changed.
Right.
We'd gone from print media and the early-ish stages of the internet. We did have a web presence, but it was a very different kettle of fish to all of a sudden everything being done on social media. Now tell me that's not a complete and utter generation gap. And who's going to employ a communications manager,
Mhm.
even when they've worked at one of these massive worldwide companies, if they've had 10 years out of the game and the whole game's changed? And yet he would write all these letters. She is earning beneath her capacity because of this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh my God.
Mm.
And so the financial abuse and control continued well after. And it literally got to a point I just had to go in and risk going to see a lawyer and going, look, I'm going to have to just pay you when I can
Mhm.
and how I can, because I have to get out of this. And they managed to get me, a certain amount so I could get out of the house. So
Ugh.
it was a lot to go through. And also, I knew every step of the way that I was doing the right thing. I had to get out. My health was starting to suffer. And I knew it was going to get worse and keep going downhill if I stayed. Then, having found kinesiology, I really threw myself into the study. And to me, that was the best thing that could have happened, because that's how I started finding myself, unpacking those traumas and stresses within my body, finding greater senses of wellness, finding other practitioners or books that I could delve into to get more information, to understand more about that human condition, what had created my internal condition that attracted that kind of a relationship, and therefore also why I couldn't find myself wiggling out of it for so long. And so unpacking all of that was just so eye-opening. The end of the October 2015, I was studying kinesiology, and in the January of 2016, I ended the marriage. But in that time, I was also working with a psychologist, I was working with a naturopath, I was working with a chiropractor, I was working with a Chinese doctor, and they were all helping me get my physical body back into a place where I could function.
Mm.
And as we were unpacking the trauma stories, I was really starting to look at, well, life can't surely be this hard. I think that's the biggest thing when you start down this spiritual kind of journey is there are less and less answers, but there are more and more questions. And the
Mm.
more questions we can ask, the more deeply we go within ourselves. And the more we get to ask better questions and deeper questions. And yeah, we get some form of answer, but I think the answer is never a full stop. There's always a comma or there's always a semicolon or something that then gives us a breath and a pause to then find the next question to ask.
I read that you finished 6 years of school in 4 years. How did
I
you do
did.
that? How did you do that?
Because I was obsessed. Well, I guess
You were
I
loving what you were
was.
learning. It sounds like it was the ultimate therapy to get you from there
Yeah.
to here.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And once I found it, I guess my desire just grew and grew, because it was like opening a door to something I had no clue existed. And yet, on every level of my being, every class I went into, it felt like I was remembering stuff that I knew from, I don't know, past life, whatever it is. I felt like I was remembering. And I just wanted to open up more of me that remembered,
Hmm.
but not on that conscious level. It was like this cellular recognition. And I just absorbed it all. At that time, I had my children 9 nights a fortnight and he had them 5. So all of a sudden, I've got 5 nights where I'm having to learn to not be with my children, because until I left, I was 100% with my children, 100%. So when I've got 5 days and nights on my own, if I wasn't at school, I would throw myself into the study.
So for you to
Yeah.
just distract yourself in your work, in
Yeah.
your study, probably was
Mm.
really great therapy again, just to
It's
dive
the
into it.
best. It was the best thing ever. It saved me. And I think the beauty of it was as well, because when you're learning something like a somatic therapy, such as kinesiology, when you're in class, you're having the technique performed on you, and then you're performing it on somebody else or vice versa. So I was also being balanced. As much as we were told to use goals and things that were directed towards our kinesiology study, I'm going to choose goals that help me move through what I'm
Smart.
moving through now, which is coming to terms with the abuse, understanding how I've allowed it in, bringing forgiveness in, because I don't want to hate him, and I don't hate him. Having that ability to be balanced and do all of that through that time. I ended up overlapping my advanced diploma with my diploma, which usually they don't allow. They finish one before you start another. But I spoke to them and they're like, look, you're up to date with the work. It's you. And because I'd been so immersed in it, they were like, we know you can handle it. It's fine. I also did, I think I worked out, it ended up being like 26 weekends worth of school by the time I did all the advanced things that the college gave, plus another modality and all this other stuff. And that's a lot of time to spend
But
in the
you were loving
classroom.
it. Hey there, my friend. Shannon here, just popping in quickly because I'm wondering, is this episode getting you thinking? Are you starting to come up with ideas for your second act? Maybe it's changing careers, writing a book, starting a business. Whatever it is, I am here to help. You can book a free discovery call with me so that we can chat about your next steps. So head over to secondactsuccess.co/coaching. Now let's get back to the episode. Amanda, tell us what a kinesiologist does for listeners who are listening, and obviously they're intrigued by now. So just tell me a little bit about what you do now that you practice it.
So, kinesiology is looking at that Eastern wisdom and Western science. So, we use a traditional Chinese medicine, the meridians and the acupressure points, and we use the chakra nadi system. So, we're looking at the energetic systems of the body as well as the physicality of it. But we look at body systems, organs, all of the bits of you. And the way I like to explain it, quantum physicists have proven the universe is 4% physical matter. So this physical meat suit that we're in is 4% of the picture. So what's the rest? And that's when we start to understand how deep and complex the human field is, because it's our emotional, energetic, spiritual, relational, hormonal, financial, all the different things, sexual, like all those bits that make a totality of who we are. And then we've got that part of it where people think that the subconscious is in the brain between our ears, but our subconscious and our unconscious is in every cell of every little electron of energy that make us up. It's in every bit of us. And memories, therefore, can be stored in any of those parts. So as we start to understand metaphysics, which is beyond the physical, and we're seeing aches and pains, or we're seeing actual diseases manifesting in the body, where they are manifesting starts to make a lot of sense. And then what we're doing is we are looking at, okay, what switches were flipped through those traumas you've experienced? When were they flipped? How were they flipped? And what do we need to do to change that vibration that is held in your body? Because often physical manifestations that are coming through, whether it be in disease or in pain, it's emotional stress and trauma that is creating that energy blockage. And what we want to do is find out that root cause of it. So yes, inflammation in your body, I want to know that you've got it, but I don't want to give you an anti-inflammatory to get rid of the inflammation. I want to know what's causing the inflammation. Why does your body feel like it needs to protect that part of you with that inflammatory little parcel? Why is it putting bubble wrap around that? What is fragile in there that is being and protected?
Right.
And that's the bit that we want to know.
I can see how that just really helped you heal from your first act.
Yeah.
And now you probably really felt like this is your purpose for your second act. And now you want to go out and teach others about this. So talk to me about that stage of becoming a life coach and really going out and trying to help people heal their traumas.
I used to laugh with my kinesiologist about it, because when I first went into their office, I still remember saying to them, I need to fix myself enough to save my marriage because I'm broken. Now, that kind of tells you the mental state that I was in, and that was beginning of 2015.
Right.
When I look back now at that woman, I see that she was, one, never broken, because we are never broken.
Nope.
But I look at the life I am living now, knowing that I have consciously created it from where I was, and it is poles apart. And I often use I mentioned to you before we started, I've just finished walking my dog at the beach. I'm still covered in sand from throwing the ball, But a few years ago, if the weather wasn't perfect, I wouldn't have walked to the beach. Now I walk it in all weathers. And every single one of those days, I was like, oh my God, compare this to like yesterday and or the day before. Like, this is insane. But I was still in wonder and awe and that magic, and I will see anywhere else. That little change in behavior from where I was before, where I wouldn't walk the beach unless it was this perfect thing because the weather's rubbish, and I'd make all these excuses and it'd be all this negative story around it. Oh, you can't walk the beach when it's like that because it's just not pleasant. But now I'm seeing the magic and the beauty and the wonder in it. Even when
Mm.
some days I am trudging up the beach, it is hard work. But even in those moments, there's still nowhere I'd rather be. I've been able to find this level of inner peace that I can anchor into even when everything's tumultuous around me.
Mm.
And this is where when people come to me and they say, I just want to be happy, tell me what happiness means to you. Because if you are happy all the time, you actually do need medication because you're manic. And if people are happy all the time, you don't trust them. There's something not right there.
It's true. It's so true. Like, what are you on over
Yeah.
there?
And everybody thinks that happiness is the thing that we want to aim for, but realness is what we want to aim for, which means we are going to go through tough stuff. Life is going to throw us curveballs. Life is going to be hard at times. And if we allow ourselves to feel these emotions, if we know that it is temporary, whatever we're feeling, whether it be amazing or not so amazing, if we understand the temporariness of it, we can just have a more easier path.
Hmm.
That whole platitude of this too shall pass, it will. When I think about the depths of grief I've been to, again, I'm not still there.
Nope.
And the happiest moment of my life, again, I'm not still there. It's past. We need to experience the full range of human emotion, the light, the dark, the good, the bad, the really damn painful, and the most beautiful. And a lot of those aren't so far apart from each other as we like to believe.
Mm.
There is pain in the beauty because we know it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also beauty in the pain because we know we're being ripped open because we're loving so much or because we're caring so deeply. And so as we can start to really understand and feel into all of that, our life gets richer. Happier, yes, kind of, in a weird way. But for me, it gets richer. It gets more texture. It gets more color and more depth. And I enjoy my life more. I am more content. I am more peaceful, even when the shit is hitting the fan and things aren't feeling so
Because
great.
you're present, right? You're present with yourself.
Yeah. And I'm not denying those parts of myself that are more messy, that are less
Right.
pretty. I still get cranky because people haven't done enough around the house or whatever the hell it is I decide to be cranky about that day. Of course I do,
Right.
because I'm human. And that's the reason I called my book Divine Messy Human. We are messy. Life is messy. And the more we can accept the messiness, the more full and real and rich and wonderful our humanity is. But above all of that, we are divine creatures. And the more we can tap into that divinity whilst accepting the messiness, the more we can enjoy that human experience for all that it is. When we're denying our divinity or not able to connect to it or not tapped in, and we're rolling in the mess and we're only seeing the darkness of the mess, then we're having a really tough human experience. And I know which way I want to be experiencing it.
I love that you named your book that. It's a reminder. We have to remind ourselves that it's okay to be messy, that things aren't perfect. And a lot of my listeners are going through the messy. They're trying to transition from their first act to their second act, figuring out whether it's starting a business, changing careers, getting divorced, whatever it is. And it is messy. And it really, it's even when it's perfect, it's going to continue to be messy because it's twists and turns and ups
hell
and
yeah.
downs. How has the book been for you? You know, the fact that you're able to share your words and share it with others. And I'm sure the reception has been amazing.
Look, it has been, and it continues to surprise me. I think that book had been swimming around in my head for so long that when we found that container, it literally, I had the whole manuscript out of me in 5
Wow.
weeks. And it was 120 days from typing the first words to holding my book ready for my launch. It was crazy
Wow.
fast. And also, I needed to get to a point in my healing where I had truly forgiven the people who had harmed
Mhm.
me. And there's not a lot of my story in the book because it is about showing people what's possible. It is about talking about some of the things that we experience as humans that are the messy parts, that if we learn to befriend them, they sit more easily within us. So we have less conflict and we become more coherent electrical beings, which means that we are more harmonic in life and we're able to navigate better. And I think you're right. This second act is messy because we've looked at our first act and gone, really? Is that all life is? I made some really big mistakes there. And now what do I want for my
Right.
second act? And we start asking some really big questions of ourselves. And this is where I talk with clients about having internal scaffolding and external scaffolding. The internal scaffolding are all of those inner tools that we use, whether it be emotional processing, meditation, journaling, whatever it is. The external scaffolding for me are incredible coaches, healers, kinesiologists, support
Mhm.
networks that you can gain wisdom from and share wisdom with. And that is different to the external influence I talk about in the book, where we are submitting to other people's ideas of what we should
Mm.
be doing and denying our internal truth, because our internal truth knows what we should be doing. The second you ask yourself, I know myself, I knew I needed to leave my marriage at some point. What I was trying to do, because I thought it would be less painful for everyone if I could just get through till the kids graduated high school. But again, that story. And I would have been dead by then. I don't mean to be rude and dramatic, but I would have been because I was getting so sick that I just wouldn't have made it that long. I had to get out sooner. But the second I asked myself that question, realistically, I should have packed my
Mhm.
bags and left because it would have saved us all a lot of toxicity, a lot of heartache, and a lot of pain. And also, that wasn't my life path to
Mm.
walk. But when we ask ourselves those big questions, oh, is this job really right for me? That question does not come in if you are in your incredible job. It just
So right.
doesn't. The question comes up because you're going, I think life could be better. I think my job could be better. I think my relationship could be better. I think
Mhm.
that's why you're asking the question. But what we do is we often tell ourselves that we don't know the answer to that. And we'll go out and we'll survey monkey everyone else. And I think part of what we're doing in that is we're going, by the way, I'm asking you this question, is my boss an ass? Because I know they are. But what I'd really like you to do, if you could write the letter for me to resign from my job and find me another job so that I'm not out of work at all, if you could do that for me, that'd be great. That's what we're looking for.
Amanda, yes.
But no one does that.
No, you're right. And this is like speaking to me so much because you're asking yourself this question, but you're not answering it. You're just push.
Because you don't have the courage to. Because
Nope,
we're not taught to trust that.
we are not. That's why there's such a small percentage of us that make that change and make that leap. And
Mm.
I feel like that is my mission. And clearly it's yours too, of just
Mm.
empowering others to say it is okay to pivot and change. And you don't have to wait till the kids go to school.
No.
You are living your life and you can be a mom, a partner, whatever it is, but no one's going to be happy unless you're happy. I also love that you were talking about ticking all the boxes. And that's something that I say all the time. But you know what? I left a dream career. It was not toxic. I loved it,
Mm.
but I
Yeah.
had 2 little ones and I needed to be present. I didn't want to be traveling around the world. And for me, I
Yeah.
said, okay, you know what? Congratulations, Shannon. You did it. I checked the box. Now, what's my next adventure? Whereas I think a lot of people would stick with it. For me, I think I knew I was at the end of it. I was proud of
Mm.
myself. I wanted a new challenge. And that was
Mm.
my chance to pivot. And it was messy and it was hard. But I just encourage people to think that way, to leave a toxic marriage
Mm.
like you, or to make that change to make yourself fuller and happier in this one life that we have.
Yeah. And I love what you say there. You had this amazing job and you're going, you were able to be proud of that.
Mm.
Now, some people get themselves stuck into the golden handcuffs, and I mean, I don't really like that term, but they get stuck into the fear and scarcity of, I've made it here. If I leave this, there may be nothing else.
Yeah.
because our brain wants to go into binary of right, wrong, yes, no, this, that. It can't see that there are, and I always say, there's not just black and white. There are all the different shades of gray, and there's the whole Pantone color chart as well.
Exactly.
And they're just the colors we can see. Like there is a whole range of color that we can't even see. So when you start thinking like that, our limited mind only knows what it knows. And so our mind is only limited by our known world. The universe is unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
And so also once we get into that, we can start going, okay, so I want this or better.
Right.
When we can start doing that, we start to dissolve some of those edges around that limitation that we're putting on ourselves, and we start being able to go, okay, well, I know it's unlimited. So whatever's meant for me, bring it in.
Being a kinesiologist and a life coach, if someone is feeling like they're in this turmoil and in this area of transition, that leaning on someone, that external support can help get you to that next level.
Always. I would not be where I am today. I had a session with my mentor last night. This year I said to her, we're doing a session a month to keep me on track, to if I then want on top of that more support, of course I'm going to go to other people. I see my acupuncturist at the moment, and I'm also working with a hypnotherapist on and off. And so we need those external scaffolding. And I tell you now, if you go to work with a coach or a healer or anybody, talk to them first. We spend more time working out what kind of car we're going to buy than who's going to deal with our mental and emotional health or our spiritual health.
Right.
People playing around in our trauma and our subconscious, and we don't talk to them about it first. Have a meeting, talk to them. If they won't talk to you, don't go with them. And you know what? And if they are not working with other healers and coaches to keep themselves growing and evolving and changing and overcoming their own stories and patterns and behaviors, and I think that is valuable.
I'm a coach, a career coach, and I have a business coach, and I love hearing her stories of her business coach or her life coach. It really just shows you that we all have that support, and you just want everyone to be able to have that. So last question, Amanda, if there are listeners who are listening and they're thinking about launching into a second act, getting divorced, moving from one thing to the next, what are your words of wisdom?
Trust your instincts, trust your intuition. Intuition is there to guide you closer and closer and closer to your life purpose. So slowing down and turning down the noise on the outside world, whether it be friends, family, internet, social media, whatever it is, turn down the noise and go within. Take a walk in nature, journal, whatever it is that you feel comfortable doing, even when you're gardening, or I used to do it washing the dishes, because it's such one of those repetitive tasks that I could go into that meditative space and sort of process stuff while I was doing it. I had somebody who does it while they're vacuuming.
Yes.
You don't really need to think much about it. So they would then process stuff then. So just get into that space, whatever it is for you, and process what you need to do. You can do it in those moments of daydreaming in a really mundane task, and tap into it and ask it questions. Become like that 3-year-old. What do you think of this? How do you think this could work out? What? Why? But why? But why? But why? I love my but why child.
I know.
And forgetting the how. It's not up to us how. Because again, we're working within limitation, our limited mindset. Don't worry about the how. What do I want? Why do I want it? How do I want to feel at the end is one of the how questions that I do love, because how am I going to feel when all of this, whatever it is, comes to fruition? And tapping into those feelings and starting to go, okay, what could be possible if I made this choice? What could be possible if I didn't make this choice? And just the more questions you ask, the better you'll get at asking yourself questions, trusting yourself and acting on it.
Yes.
Because nothing happens if we don't act.
Just find those moments to turn inward. I love that. Amanda Kate, this has been so wonderful. And Divine Messy Human is a wonderful title for a book. I hope everyone goes and checks it out. And thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Shannon. Honestly, I love your work. Thank you for putting it all out into the world. And yeah, keep shining your light because we need you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.